The village of Karawa had always been a quiet place. Nestled between the tall grasses of the savannah, it thrived on its livestock, cattle, goats, and sheep that grazed under the watchful eyes of the villagers. Among the people of Karawa, there was no one more respected than Kofi, the village's most skilled hunter. His reputation for courage and unmatched skill with a spear stretched beyond the village's borders. Many whispered that Kofi was protected by the spirits of the land, for no man could face the wild as he did and return unscathed every time. But now, even Kofi was troubled. Over the past few weeks, livestock had begun to vanish in the dead of night. At first, it was just a goat here, a sheep there. The villagers thought little of it, blaming wild dogs or perhaps a lion straying too close. Yet, as the days passed, more and more animals disappeared, leaving nothing but strange tracks in the dirt, tracks larger than any hyena, yet too irregular to be from a lion. Fear began to grip the village. "Kofi, you must do something," the village chief urged one morning. His voice was thick with concern, and the lines on his weathered face seemed deeper than usual. "If this continues, we will have nothing left. We have seen the tracks, but this is no ordinary beast." Kofi, who stood tall and lean, his eyes sharp as an eagle's, nodded sullenly. He had already been investigating the tracks himself. They were like nothing he had seen before, twisted, as if they were half human, half animal. The villagers had spoken of hearing strange noises at night, low growls mixed with the faint echo of something more unsettling, laughter, the kind that crawled under your skin. "I will go," Kofi said firmly, his hand gripping his spear. "I will find this creature, and I will bring it down, whatever it is." The villagers watched him with a mixture of hope and fear as he prepared for the hunt. His spear, polished and sharp, glinted in the morning sun, and his worn leather sandals whispered across the dirt as he walked. Behind him, the tall grasses of the savannah swayed in the warm breeze, but something felt wrong. The air was thick, the usual calls of birds absent. Even the animals sensed it. Something unnatural lurked nearby. Kofi knelt beside the latest set of tracks, his brow furrowed in concentration. The prints were larger than a hyena's, much larger, but they were not consistent. One moment, they looked like a beast, the next, like a man's bare feet. Kofi's heart quickened. He had heard tales of such things before, whispered around the fire at night. Stories of creatures that walked between two worlds, part man, part beast. But those were just tales, weren't they? He shook off the thought and stood tall, his resolve hardening. Stories or not, something was killing their livestock, and it was his duty to stop it. He would find this beast, and if it was a hyena, man, or something in between, it didn't matter. It would fall by his spear. The day stretched on as Kofi moved deeper into the savannah, the golden grass parting in his wake. He followed the trail carefully, noticing how it seemed to lead in circles, as if the creature was toying with him. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the land. It was then, just as the light began to fade, that Kofi saw it. At the edge of the forest, standing still as a stone, was the hyena. Its yellow eyes gleamed in the twilight, reflecting the last rays of the sun. But this hyena was no ordinary beast. It was massive, its fur matted with blood, and there was something in its gaze that chilled Kofi to the bone. It looked at him not with the eyes of a mere animal, but with something more, something human. Kofi raised his spear, ready for the fight, but the hyena did not charge. It stared at him for what felt like an eternity, and then, with a deep, guttural growl, it turned and disappeared into the forest. Kofi hesitated for a moment, his grip tightening on the spear. The hunt had begun, but this was no ordinary prey. The villagers had been right. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't just a hyena, it was something far worse. As dawn broke over the savannah, Kofi was already on the move. His spear slung over his shoulder, he walked silently, his eyes scanning the horizon. The sky was painted in soft oranges and purples, but Kofi's mind was sharp and focused. He knew that the creature, whatever it was, wouldn't be easy to track. It had already eluded the other villagers, and now it was up to him to outsmart it. The footprints, strange as they were, remained his only guide. They appeared sporadically, as if the creature moved between forms, sometimes walking as a beast, sometimes as a man. Kofi could see the faint outline of them in the dirt, leading him further into the savannah. The grass rustled under his feet, but the world around him was eerily silent. No birds called, no insects buzzed. Everything felt unnatural. Hours passed, and the sun climbed higher into the sky. Kofi paused by a small watering hole, crouching to inspect the ground. The tracks were clearer here, fresh and recent. The beast had been here only moments before. His heartbeat quickened, but he remained calm. This was what he had trained for. Years of hunting the wilds had prepared him for moments like these. He was patient, methodical, and ready. As he rose to continue, he heard it, a low growl, carried on the wind. His body tensed, and he gripped his spear tightly. The sound was distant, but unmistakable. The creature was nearby. Slowly, he moved in the direction of the noise, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the dense brush ahead. The closer he got, the stronger the scent of blood became. It filled the air, sharp and metallic, mingling with the earthy smell of the savannah. Kofi's instincts screamed danger, but he pushed forward, determined to confront whatever lay ahead. Finally, he saw it, a shadow moving just beyond the trees, slipping between the trunks with an unnatural grace. Kofi crouched low, inching forward silently until he reached the edge of the clearing. There, in the fading light, was the hyena. It was larger than any Kofi had ever seen. Its thick, matted fur caked with dirt and blood. Its yellow eyes gleamed in the dim light, locking onto Kofi's with an intensity that made his skin crawl. For a moment, they stared at each other, predator and prey. But which was which? Kofi raised his spear, but before he could move, the hyena did something that froze him in place. It began to shift. Its form wavered, bending and twisting in ways that defied logic. The creature stood on its hind legs, its bones cracking and reshaping, until what stood before him was not a hyena, but a man. The transformation was seamless, and the man, tall, dark-skinned, and wearing nothing but a tattered loincloth, smiled wickedly at Kofi. "Do you think you can kill me, hunter?" The man hissed, his voice low and gravelly. "Many have tried, none have succeeded." Kofi's heart raced, but he didn't flinch. "You've killed our livestock, terrorized our village. I will stop you." The man laughed, a sound that echoed through the trees like the hyena's haunting growl. "I am not like the beasts you hunt, Kofi. I am more. I am both man and creature. I can walk between worlds. And now, you have entered mine." Before Kofi could react, the man's form shifted again, faster this time, back into the monstrous hyena. With a guttural roar, it lunged at him, its jaws snapping dangerously close to his throat. Kofi rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the beast's powerful bite, and thrust his spear forward. The tip grazed the creature's side, drawing blood, but it wasn't enough. The hyena snarled in fury, retreating into the shadows as quickly as it had attacked. Panting, Kofi stood and readied himself for the next assault. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what he had just witnessed. This was no ordinary animal. It was something far more dangerous. A shapeshifter, a creature that could move between human and beast at will. How could he kill something that wasn't bound by the rules of nature? The creature's laughter echoed through the trees once more, and Kofi's grip tightened on his spear. He would have to be smarter, faster, more ruthless than ever before. The hunt had truly begun, but this time, the prey was no longer just a beast. It was something far more sinister. As night fell over the savannah, Kofi's resolve only grew stronger. He would not return to the village until the creature was dead, until the people of Karawa could sleep peacefully once more. But as he ventured deeper into the wilderness, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was no longer the hunter in this game. He was being hunted too. Night settled over the savannah, wrapping the land in a thick, eerie silence. Kofi had followed the trail deeper into the wilderness, but now, standing beneath the twisted branches of an ancient baobab tree, he realized that he needed more than just strength to defeat this creature. His spear alone would not be enough. His thoughts were troubled as he made his way back to the village. The creature's taunting voice still echoed in his mind, its transformation from man to beast replaying over and over again. Kofi had heard tales of such things before, but he had never believed them. Stories meant to scare children around the fire, legends of creatures that walked the line between man and animal, cursed to live as both. When Kofi reached the village, he went straight to the elder's hut. The village elder, Kwaku, was a man of great wisdom and knowledge of the old ways. He had seen many things in his time, things most men refused to believe. Kofi hoped he would have answers. The inside of the elder's hut was dimly lit by the flickering light of a single oil lamp. The walls were lined with animal skins, herbs, and ancient symbols that seemed to whisper forgotten secrets. Kwaku sat cross-legged in the center, his eyes closed as if he had been waiting for Kofi's arrival. "You've seen it, haven't you?" Kwaku said before Kofi could speak. His voice was soft, but it carried the weight of years. Kofi knelt before him, his heart heavy. "Yes, elder, but this is no ordinary hyena. It's something else. It can shift, change. It was a man, and then it became a beast again. I saw it with my own eyes." Kwaku nodded slowly, his eyes opening to reveal a deep, knowing gaze. "You have encountered an keen, a shapeshifter. They are rare, but they have existed for as long as the Savannah has breathed. They are cursed, forced to walk between the worlds of man and beast, never truly belonging to either." Kofi listened intently, every word tightening the knot of fear in his chest. "How do I kill it?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "How do I protect the village from something like this?" The elder sighed, his weathered hands resting on his knees. "Killing a shapeshifter is no easy task, Kofi. They are bound by dark magic, older than the earth itself. You cannot defeat it with strength alone. The Hyena knows your thoughts, it senses your fears. You must first conquer yourself before you can conquer the creature." Kofi frowned, confusion washing over him. "What do you mean? How can I conquer something inside myself while fighting a monster?" Kwaku leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The Hyena preys on the minds of men, testing their resolve. It is not just a beast of flesh and blood, Kofi. It is a creature born of magic and spirit. It shifts between forms not only to hide, but to trick. You must understand, Kofi, when you fight this creature, you are not just fighting a hyena. You are fighting your own doubts, your own fears, and your own shadow." The elder's words hung heavy in the air, and Kofi sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the situation. "What must I do then, elder? How do I defeat it?" Kwaku stood slowly, walking to the back of his hut, where he kept an old chest bound by leather straps. He opened it carefully, pulling out a small bundle wrapped in worn cloth. When he unwrapped it, Kofi saw an ancient dagger, its blade dark and gleaming in the dim light. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, symbols Kofi could not read, but he felt their power just by looking at them. This dagger was forged long ago, in the time when magic and men lived side by side. Kwaku explained, "It is the only weapon that can pierce the heart of the Hyena and break the curse that binds it to this world. But be warned, Kofi, you must strike when the creature is in its human form. Only then will it be vulnerable." Kofi took the dagger, feeling its weight in his hand. It was lighter than he expected, but it thrummed with an energy he had never felt before. "Thank you, elder. I will not fail." As Kofi left the elder's hut, the weight of the dagger at his side gave him a sense of purpose. But Kwaku's words lingered in his mind. He would have to face more than just the beast in the savannah. He would have to face the darkness within himself. The creature was not just an enemy, it was a mirror, reflecting back the deepest fears and desires of those who hunted it. The days that followed were tense. Kofi returned to the savannah, tracking the shapeshifter once again. Each night, the creature haunted his dreams, its form shifting between man and beast, always taunting him, always just out of reach. Kofi could feel his grip on reality slipping, his thoughts clouded by doubt. Was he truly ready to face something so powerful, so ancient? But there was no turning back now. The village depended on him. His people looked to him for protection, and Kofi would not let them down. He would find the creature, and he would end this once and for all. The trail led him deeper into the wilderness than he had ever gone before, into a part of the savannah that even the wild animals avoided. The grass here was taller, the trees twisted and gnarled. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and Kofi could feel the presence of the creature watching him from the shadows. He tightened his grip on the dagger, his resolve hardening. Whatever fear lingered inside him, he would confront it. This was no ordinary hunt, but Kofi was no ordinary hunter. He had faced death before, and he would face it again, no matter the cost. The trail had grown faint as Kofi ventured into the deepest part of the wilderness. Each step he took felt heavier, the tall grasses whispering as if they carried secrets from the creature that lurked nearby. The sky above was a dull gray, the sun veiled by clouds that seemed to mirror the darkness creeping into Kofi's mind. His thoughts were troubled. Waiku's words still gnawed at him. The elder had warned him that this battle would be more than a fight against flesh and blood. It would be a confrontation with his deepest fears. And those fears were close now, too close. As dusk fell, Kofi found himself standing before the mouth of a large cave, hidden within a rocky hill at the edge of the savannah. The air was thick with the stench of blood and decay, the unmistakable scent of death. This was the creature's lair. He could feel it, deep in his bones. The villagers had spoken of the missing livestock, but Kofi knew that this place held more than the bones of animals. Then Cain, the shapeshifter, had a hunger far darker than anyone imagined. Kofi gripped the ancient dagger tightly. The blade felt warm in his hand, almost as if it pulsed with a life of its own. Waiting for the final moment, he steeled himself, taking one last breath before stepping into the cave's shadowed maw. The darkness swallowed him, and for a moment, Kofi's world became nothing but blackness. The air was cool, damp, and every sound seemed to echo off the stone walls. His footsteps were soft, but in the silence, they felt like thunder. He moved carefully, his spear in one hand and the dagger in the other, his senses heightened. Then he heard it. A soft, low growl coming from the depths of the cave. It was the same sound he had heard before, a sound that chilled him to his core. But this time, there was no turning back. The creature was here, waiting for him. As Kofi ventured further, the cave opened into a larger chamber, dimly lit by the faint glow of moonlight filtering in through a crack in the ceiling. And there, in the center of the chamber, stood the shapeshifter. It was not in its hyena form this time. Instead, it had taken the shape of a man, tall and lean, with eyes that gleamed with malice. The creature smiled, its lips curling back to reveal sharp, pointed teeth. "So, you've come, hunter," the man said, his voice echoing in the cave. "You think you can kill me? Many have tried, none have succeeded." Kofi said nothing, his grip tightening on his spear. He could feel the weight of the dagger at his side, but he knew he had to wait for the right moment. The elder's words echoed in his mind. "You must strike when the creature is in its human form." The shapeshifter circled Kofi, its bare feet moving silently across the stone floor. "You think you're different, don't you? That you have what it takes to stop me. But you're just like the others, foolish, arrogant. You don't understand the power I wield." Kofi's heart pounded in his chest, but he remained calm. He had faced beasts before, creatures of the wild that could tear a man apart in seconds. But this was different. This creature wasn't just a beast. It was something far more dangerous. It was a being of magic, of darkness. "You've killed enough," Kofi said, his voice steady. "It ends tonight." The creature laughed, a deep, guttural sound that sent shivers down Kofi's spine. "Oh hunter, it will never end. You can't kill me. I am eternal. I am both man and beast, and I will live long after you are gone." With a sudden, inhuman speed, the shapeshifter lunged at Kofi, its body twisting and contorting as it shifted between forms. One moment it was a man, the next a snarling hyena. Kofi barely had time to raise his spear before the creature was upon him, its jaws snapping dangerously close to his neck. He threw himself to the side, rolling across the stone floor and coming up with his spear ready. The creature growled, its yellow eyes glowing in the darkness as it stalked him. It moved with a terrifying grace, its body shifting and warping with each step. Kofi knew he couldn't let it get close again. He had to keep his distance, had to wait for the right moment to strike, but the creature was fast, too fast. It lunged again, and this time Kofi was ready. He dodged to the left, thrusting his spear forward with all his strength. The tip of the spear pierced the creature's side, and it howled in pain, its form flickering between human and beast. But it didn't stop. The wound seemed to slow it down, but not enough. It lashed out with a clawed hand, catching Kofi across the chest and sending him stumbling back. Blood dripped from his wound, but Kofi didn't falter. He gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The creature stood before him now, breathing heavily, its body shifting uncontrollably between forms. It was vulnerable, weakened. Kofi reached for the dagger, the ancient blade glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You think you can defeat me with that?" The creature snarled, its voice ragged. "That dagger won't save you." But Kofi knew better. He had seen the fear in the creature's eyes. Even if it tried to hide it, the dagger was the key. It was the only thing that could end this nightmare. With a cry of defiance, Kofi lunged forward, the dagger flashing in the dim light. The creature, caught between forms, tried to dodge, but it was too late. The blade sank into its chest, piercing the creature's heart. The shapeshifter screamed, its body convulsing as the dark magic that had bound it to this world began to unravel. Kofi twisted the dagger, pushing it deeper. The creature's form flickered one last time, and then, with a final blood-curdling scream, it collapsed to the ground. Kofi stood over the body, panting, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The cave was silent now, the air still and heavy. He had done it. The creature was dead. But as he looked down at the body, something stirred in him, a sense of unease. The creature had been a reflection of something deeper, something primal. In killing it, had Kofi also killed a part of himself? He shook off the thought and turned to leave the cave, the dagger still clutched in his hand. The village would be safe now. The people would sleep in peace. But Kofi knew that he would never be the same. The shapeshifter had shown him the darkness that lived within every man, the thin line that separated man from beast. As he stepped out into the cool night air, Kofi looked up at the stars. The hunt was over, but the lessons it had taught him would stay with him forever. The sun had risen by the time Kofi returned to the village. Its warm golden light bathed the land in a soft glow, as if the savannah itself had been cleansed by the events of the night. The villagers were waiting for him at the edge of the village, their faces a mixture of hope and fear. When they saw Kofi, bloody but alive, walking toward them, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd. Mothers clutched their children close, and the men exchanged looks of gratitude. The chief stepped forward, his weathered face filled with both pride and concern. "Kofi, you have returned," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Is it done? Is the creature dead?" Kofi nodded, his gaze distant. "It's over. The creature will not trouble the village again." A cheer erupted from the villagers, but Kofi barely heard it. His thoughts were far away, still in the dark cave where he had faced the shapeshifter. He had done what he set out to do. He had protected his people, slain the beast, and saved the village. But as he stood there, surrounded by the celebration, he felt no triumph. Instead, there was a deep weariness in his bones, a weight on his soul that he could not shake. The village elder, Kwaku, watched Kofi carefully from the crowd. He saw the look in Kofi's eyes, the haunted expression of a man who had faced something far beyond the physical. After the celebrations died down, Kwaku pulled Kofi aside, leading him to the edge of the village where the tall grasses swayed in the wind. "You did well, Kofi," Kwaku said softly, his eyes full of understanding. "But I see the burden you carry. What troubles you?" Kofi stared out at the vast savannah, his hand resting on the ancient dagger at his side. The creature, it wasn't just a beast, it was something more. "I thought killing it would end the nightmare, but now I wonder if it has only just begun." Kwaku nodded, his gaze thoughtful. The Ninkane was not just a threat to the village, Kofi. It was a reflection of the darkness that lives within all men. It is easy to kill a beast, but harder to confront the beasts within ourselves. Kofi's hand tightened on the dagger. "I saw things in that cave, Elder. Things I cannot explain." The creature, it spoke of power, of the line between man and beast. It wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a test. And I'm not sure if I passed or failed. Kwaku placed a hand on Kofi's shoulder, his voice calm and steady. The fact that you are asking these questions shows that you are wiser than you were before. You faced the creature and survived, but more than that, you faced yourself. The shadows we carry are part of what makes us human, Kofi. It is not about whether you pass or fail. It is about how you choose to live with the knowledge you've gained. Kofi looked down at the dagger in his hand, the weight of it now feeling different. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a symbol of what he had been through, of the battle he had fought, not just with the shapeshifter, but with the darker parts of himself. I don't know what comes next, Kofi said quietly, but I know that I will never be the same. Kwaku smiled gently. None of us ever are, after facing the darkness. But you are stronger now, and the village is safe because of you. That is what matters. Kofi nodded, though the heaviness in his heart remained. He knew that the elder was right. Life would go on, and he would continue to protect his people. But deep down, he also knew that the Savannah held many more secrets, many more dangers that blurred the line between man and beast. And one day he would have to face them again. As Kofi walked away from the elder, the sun rising higher in the sky, he felt the weight of his journey settle into his bones. The hunt was over, but the lessons would stay with him forever. With the village now safe, Kofi returned home, his mind and spirit forever changed by the events of the past days. He had faced the shapeshifter, conquered the darkness within himself, and emerged stronger for it. But in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the tall grasses and the animals stood in the distance, Kofi would always remember the creature's final words. "You are not so different from me, hunter." And in those moments, Kofi would wonder just how thin the line between man and beast truly was.